I'm Dr. Kelechi Egwim. Just to give you a little bit of my background, I'm a chemical engineer, so this is really up my alley. It makes the presentation interesting because I can come at it from a lot of different perspectives. I'm going to try not to make it too science heavy. This is a science heavy subject. I'm going to do my best to make it as easily understandable as possible. It's vitally important that we understand. First question one might ask is, what is vitamin D? And some have an idea what it is. And vitamin D is a fat-soluble vitamin. A lot of people think of it as a hormone. They say it acts more like a hormone than a vitamin a lot of times. It is unique because it is the only vitamin that your body can make from the sun. Just by you being outside, your body makes vitamin D. That's unique. And it's designed that way because it's so vital. In research, somebody, Bob Imam handed me an article earlier today where they said vitamin D is the vitamin of the decade. Because so much information is coming out about its relevance and its importance. The primary source of vitamin D, by far, is the sun. You cannot eat, if you spend all your time eating foods with vitamin D, of course we have supplements as well, but even the supplements, you can't consume as much vitamin D as your body can make in an hour with the right amount of sunlight. Your body is designed to make vitamin D. That's how nature intended for us to make vitamin D, and that's why we're built that way. And food is a good source, but it's never going to compensate for what your body can actually make, because your body can make a lot in the right environment. What's the significance? Before we really can appreciate vitamin D, we need to appreciate another compound you've probably heard of called melanin. If you don't understand melanin, you're not going to understand vitamin D. Melanin is an interesting compound that I've, as a chemist, have always been interested in because it's older than us. A lot of us think of melanin as a pigmentation in our bodies, and that it is. But before there were human beings, melanin existed in animals that predated human. Key because without protection from ultraviolet rays, you have DNA destruction. You have a vulnerability to your actual DNA, which is what the link is now with cancer in terms of certain illnesses. And we have difficulty with maintaining the right amount of folic acid in your skin. So it's really vital that melanin is present in our bodies. This is an image from NASA, an image of how intense the ultraviolet rays are in any part of the world. The darker red, real dark purple, more like a brown, but the real dark red is the region where you have the most levels of ultraviolet rays. And of course, you get close to the poles, you have practically none. The important thing is that where we came from is a place on Earth, by far, with no comparison, where you have the highest concentration of ultraviolet rays. And we were adapted to come up here. Our bodies were primed for this part of the world. But as we moved to other parts of the world, as we migrated, we found climates that were giving us much less sun and much less direct sunlight and much less ultraviolet radiation. It's important to understand that because if you really want to understand vitamin D, you have to understand the balance in the skin regarding sunlight. Melanin protects the skin from excess ultraviolet rays. Your skin needs ultraviolet rays to produce vitamin D. Without UV rays, UVB in particular, your skin cannot produce vitamin D. So when we came up, we were perfectly adapted to produce the right amount of vitamin D to survive where we were. But as we migrated, the variation in us gave favor to where we were favored before for having darker skin. The lighter skinned people became more and more favored the further away they went from the part of the world where we came from. So as you went further and further, you got into the Caucasus Mountains and so on and so forth, you were less favored as a dark-skinned person. Why were you less favored? Because the melanin in your skin, which was your grace here because it was the perfect balance, now became a detriment for you in these regions because why? You had so much melanin in your skin that you completely blocked out the little sun they got. The sun was not coming in because of the degree of pigmentation that you had, so your skin was not producing the vitamin D because you had too much pigment. I like this map a little bit better. Right, because this is this is a map that we've been given, all of our lives and coming up in school, making North America bigger than Africa, and making Asia, and distorting Greenland. But in reality, we find that Africa is the second largest continent. It's almost the same size as Eurasia, which is this continent here. We don't use terms like Europe for continents because it's not a large mass surrounded by water, so we know it's not a continent. Right. So unfortunately for us, we're in North America. So you can look at this map, look at where we're optimized as African people to be, and look at where we are. That's really all you need to see to appreciate that we don't get enough sun. Your optimum serum levels of vitamin D is 18 nanomoles. Serum is basically the amount of vitamin D in your blood. That's what they measure. It doesn't really matter how much vitamin D you take, or where you take it, or how you eat it. At the end of the day, you have to have a certain level in your blood. So the serum, the optimal serum level, based on body function and what we know about vitamin D, is 80 nanomoles. Now, for black people, unfortunately, in this country, almost 80% of us are significantly deficient in vitamin D. Almost 80% of us. I mean, the numbers for white people, depending on the population, can range anywhere from 3 to 30. And that's 30 is like in the wintertime, in the most hospitable places. That's the worst for them. But most of us are walking around with near 80, and some numbers are actually higher than that, of us having far less vitamin D to just basic function. First, we want to appreciate why we care about vitamin D. The recent research, back in the days, they used to say, well, vitamin D is important because of what? What was the reason they used to tell us vitamin D was important? Anybody? Your bones and your teeth won't be strong unless you have enough vitamin D. And that's true, just not for us. As black people, we have the highest bone density of anybody, even with the most deficient levels of vitamin D. So for us, that's just not true. We may, if you have a deficiency in bone density, for black people, you actually find that the vitamin D levels, it can be as low as you can imagine, and the bone density is still far higher genetically. Our bodies have adapted either to overcome the deficiencies in bone density, or just because we're the first people on earth and God made us stronger. Whatever reason it is, our bones are stronger than everybody, regardless of our level of vitamin D, which is interesting considering how key vitamin D is to building bones.
You say that black people's bone density is higher than other races?
Anybody else, by far on average, regardless of how much vitamin D this person has, and most of us in this country have very little. research now linking vitamin D deficiency to heart disease, type 2 diabetes, various cancer. We know that prostate cancer, breast cancer, and colorectal cancer are wreaking havoc in our community. These have now been directly linked to vitamin D levels, serum vitamin D levels. Hypertension, heart attack, stroke, death. Heart attack and stroke death is not the degree to which you may have a heart attack or a stroke. Obviously, that's related too because it relates to heart disease, but it's to the degree to which you survive a heart attack or a stroke. Your chances of surviving a heart attack or a stroke is far greater the level of vitamin D you have in your body. And the research is just pouring out, and they're all consistent. The autoimmune deficiency connection of vitamin D has been made. Kidney disease, periodontal disease, we talked about teeth earlier, depression and mood disorders. And this is key because there are a lot of us, who are suffering from depression, and it could very well, a lot of other factors, that could be involved. The link has been made where it could very well be we're not having enough vitamin D in our body. Multiple sclerosis. We talked about bad bone health earlier, vulnerability to inflammation, which is related to the autoimmune deficiency issues. Rheumatoid arthritis, also related to the inflammation, neuromuscular health, and even the common colds. Your vulnerability to the cold and the flu has now been connected with research to vitamin D. And the latest one that's been connected is Alzheimer's. And I'm gonna, at the end, I'm gonna pass out the research. I'm not just gonna have to come up here and tell you something and say, "Oh, just take my word for it." Don't take my word for it. I mean, we did the research so we can have the information right. We want you to have that research. The death rate from diabetes is nearly twice as high in blacks as in whites in America. Mortality rates for prostate cancer are significantly higher among black men compared to white men, and are inversely related to the availability of ultraviolet radiation. In other words, the availability of vitamin D from sun exposure. All this is from the Journal of Nutrition. African Americans have lower vitamin D levels and reduced health outcomes compared to white Americans. Vitamin D status is a major contributor to health care costs in African American veterans compared to white veterans. This was a study recently done with veterans. Low serum levels of vitamin D are associated with increased cardiovascular mortality in a nationally represented U.S. sample. Black-white differences in vitamin D levels may contribute to excess cardiovascular mortality in blacks. Mortality rates from prostate cancer are significantly higher among black men compared to white men, and inversely related to the availability of ultraviolet radiation. In other words, the availability of vitamin D from sun exposure. That's where they are. Improved vitamin D status is essential to chronic disease prevention in blacks. I'm going to repeat that. Improved vitamin D status is essential. Essential means that you can't have it unless you resolve this issue, the chronic disease prevention in blacks. This is in the Journal of Nutrition and Annals of Family Health. These are the Journal of National Medical Association. These are all publications. These are not fringe. These are conventional, government-sponsored, published, put out there. But the information is not being put out to us. How can something this vital be kept under wraps? And this is not all new stuff. Some of this is very, very old. So what are the sources of vitamin D? Somebody asked me that earlier. We know the sun, but there are dietary sources. You've got food like fish, shrimp, egg yolk in particular, cereals are fortified with vitamin D is added to it, dairy is added to it, all types of dairy, and mushrooms. Now, this is an area that I'm not going to get too deep into, but mushrooms are the only non-animal products that have been found to have any levels of vitamin D, any significant levels of vitamin D. And if you're a vegetarian, the only natural source, not fortified, but natural source of vitamin D you're going to get is mushrooms. But there's a slight problem with that. It's a different type of vitamin D. It's vitamin D2. And our body, when we get out in the sun, makes vitamin D3. Our body functions are adapted to function with vitamin D3. Vitamin D2 is a substitute for vitamin D3, but unfortunately it's not exactly designed for our body. And a lot of recent research, especially dealing with prostate and other issues, have actually not shown an improved result from supplementing with vitamin D2 as opposed to vitamin D3. So basically what it's saying is that in a lot of cases vitamin D2 can help our chronic illnesses and our general health. There's enough of a difference between vitamin D2 and 3 that in some instances in functions in our body, they've actually found that vitamin D2 is not a supplement, a good substitute for vitamin D3. And unfortunately, vitamin D3 is only made by animals, us, and other animals. But it's important for us to know that distinction, that there is actually a difference in the two, and our body does not respond the same to both of them. As a matter of fact, even when you have function of vitamin D2, our body has a harder time absorbing it. Something called a bioavailability. You know about you take vitamins, take all the vitamins in the world, depending on the vitamins you take, your body may not be able to absorb it, and it'll go through your system and then go right out. Because when it comes down to that compound, your body needs to recognize it and know how to use it. So there's a lot of issues with absorption, with bioavailability, with bioactivity, that makes a difference between the two.
In terms of mushroom, I understand shiitake is supposed to be the
highest concentration, right? And it's interesting because with mushrooms, the mushrooms make their vitamin D from the sun as well. It's the same way we do. It's just they make a different type because they're obviously without mushrooms. But yes, and they've actually shown increased degree levels of vitamin D in mushrooms by just exposing them to more sun. And this is another kind of interesting thing. If you go to the doctor today and say, I want to get a vitamin D deficiency check, and the kits I think cost about $100 to actually do to get yourself, but insurance may cover it. But they do it and they say, okay, your vitamin D is low, which most of us in here, I can almost guarantee, is low. We're just not in the right place. We can, so we can all go back to Africa and resolve that problem, but until we're prepared to do that, we gotta survive where we are. The vitamin D that your doctor is gonna produce, is gonna prescribe for you, it's not vitamin D3. It's not because he doesn't know the vitamin D3 works better with your body. It's because the pharmaceutical companies have difficulty manufacturing that link that makes vitamin D3 what it is. They can only make vitamin D2. Well, you can make vitamin D3, but it's very expensive. It's cheaper to make vitamin D2. So what are they going to do? Make vitamin D2. What they'll do is they'll prescribe you with like 10,000 units or 20,000 units of vitamin D2 because if your body needs, if absorption is an issue, obviously you're going to take more of it. So oddly enough, they'll give you vitamin D2 pills or supplements because that's just what's easier to make, and pharmaceuticals are about making money. But it's important to note. So, end of the day, you need to get more sun because even with all the supplements in the food, your body with optimum sun exposure can produce as much as 20,000 units of vitamin D per hour. Now, the recommended dosage of vitamin D, depending on who you ask, is about 600 to 2,000 units a day. Your body can make 20,000 in an hour. So there's no substitute. There's a reason why the sun is our primary source of vitamin D. It always has been, and it continues to be. And we need to be aware of that when the CDC makes recommendations like avoid the sun between the hours of 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. daily, the prime sun hours. Wear clothing to protect the skin from exposure to the sun. Wear a hat with a wide brim hat to shade your face. Right. And use sunscreen with SPF of at least 15. These are actually great recommendations.
But they're not for us.
But they're not for us. I mean, I don't fault them for looking out for them, but we have to stop believing they're looking out for us. Because the recommendations that is helping them stay relatively cancer-free is killing us. It's not like it's just like, oh, well, it's not like a, we're just not being helped. No, we're being hurt by these recommendations, and they know it. They publish the journals that tell them that it's killing us, but their primary population concern is the white population, and for the white population, these are great recommendations. It's just not for us, and we need to always be aware of that when we get, especially health advice, because they're not necessarily talking to you. It's like you're in a room and two people are talking, and you eavesdrop and you hearing them. They're not talking to you. They're talking to each other, and what we're hearing is killing us. Diseases that are actually killing us. Skin cancer in black people, because the first thing somebody's going to tell you is, what about skin cancer? Well, the reality is that of all the cancers that black people get, skin cancer accounts for about 1 to 2% of all of those cancers. It is rare. To say that it's rare is an understatement. But on top of the fact that it is rare, the skin cancer that we get, acral lentiginous melanoma. That term might ring familiar, well, probably wouldn't ring familiar, but basically, this is the cancer that killed Bob Marley. Bob Marley died of cancer.
Yeah,
right. And he died of skin cancer. But what they don't tell you is the type of skin cancer he got, acral lentiginous melanoma, is the type of skin cancer that black people get, which has absolutely nothing to do with sun exposure. As a matter of fact, this cancer appears in parts of your body that wouldn't get any sun. The bottom of your feet.
That's what they said he.
Right.
When he got injured from a soccer game.
Right.
Europeans.
Under your fingernails, maybe under your palms, and it's been demonstrated that there is no connection between sunlight and the cancer that we will get, even in the rare cases that we get it. It's already rare. It's a very, very rare case that a black person gets skin cancer. But in the cases that they do, in those rare cases, it's not even a cancer that has anything to do with sunlight. And it's not cancer that's propagated by sunlight. It's propagated by the other things that cause cancer. As a matter of fact, there's research also looking at whether or not it actually, the vitamin D level itself may contribute to this cancer. So it's like they're telling you the opposite information. It works for them, but it's literally killing us. We're staying out of the sun because we're afraid of skin cancer. We don't get this cancer that you get from the sun, but they don't tell you that part. What they do tell you is put on sunblock, SPF 15 at least. The cure is worse than what's the term? The cure is worse than the illness. And these are the side effects, possible side effects of the sunscreen they want you to use, even though you don't need it.
We don't need that sunscreen.
Well, the melanin in your skin is natural sunscreen. Man has never produced sunscreen. In fact, your body and other animals have not produced sunscreens that are more efficient than melanin, let alone man. So you already have all the sunscreen you need. This is for them because they don't have enough. But even that has major side effects, including cancer. And they say it's only a higher cancer risk with children, but if it's a cancer risk in children, it's a risk for you as well. So not only is you not needed in the first place, but it is actually contributing to your chronic illness. So in the day, we need to get more sun. We need to get out in the sun. Like Bible says, sometimes you go out and lay out in the grass. And Richard Pryor said, rub some sun in your face, right? Which is contrary to everything they're going to tell you, because they're not talking to you. And we need to talk to each other, remind each other that we are children of the sun. That term means something. A lot of people throw it around. And the key here is not, and I'm not here saying that vitamin D or lack thereof is the reason why black people get cancer, prostate cancer. We're not saying that. What we're saying is that the reason why you're more likely to get it, the reason why there's a higher incidence of these cancers in our population is because we are not getting enough vitamin D. We're not getting enough sun. And your skin can make by far more sun, more vitamin D than you could possibly supplement.
What about a sun-filled room versus being out in the sun? Can you get the same benefit from a sun-filled room?
You can if it's not a room that has a window or a screen that's filtered from ultraviolet B rays.
Do most office buildings, they have that?
The modern ones, yeah. I mean, you know, even if you go to Home Depot to buy a window, right, that's a selling point. The selling point is this window is going to block off ultraviolet rays, both A and B. They make a point. It's a selling point.
Baby, your black is beautiful. Baby, more and your black is beautiful. Black is beautiful, and your black is natural. Black is original. Black is original. Beautiful. My mama, beauty in disguise. And your black is Africa. Your black is Jamaica. And your black is Caribbean. Your black is America. And your black is Nigeria. Your black is beautiful. Your black is beautiful.
We don't need that sunscreen stuff.
Well, you're not. The melanin in your skin is natural sunscreen. Man has never produced sunscreen. In fact, your body and other animals have not produced sunscreens that are more efficient than melanin, let alone man. So you already have all the sunscreen you need.